Here we go. So my name's Matthew. I'm better known as MD Hammond on the internet. MD Hammond Photos is my Instagram handle. So today we're going to talk about cosplay photography and getting into the hobby. So who's this guy, this weirdo in front of you? This is what I do. I find that my work kind of speaks for itself. It's very difficult to find landscape photos because I do a lot of portrait stuff to put on these things. But basically I wanted to show these are basically raws and then edits because I want to make sure that this talk is demystifying stuff. I don't want anything to be hidden behind closed doors, that kind of stuff. Photography can be a very gatekeepy kind of hobby. It can be very niche, but I wanted to make sure that people know that, you know, there is a lot of post-processing that goes on in my work. Obviously, you don't have to do any of that kind of stuff, but that's sort of my style, how to do it. It's all very hyper-real, as you can see. So moving on, so what the hell am I even talking about? Basically, I want to go through the last sort of 7 years that I've been doing cosplay photography, what I've learned, trying to make sure that people getting into the hobby like you guys or people just starting, sort of get a better understanding of what that might look like in 5-10 years, you guys working on it, what you can get out of it, and basically what we're going to go through. So why should you listen to this nerd? So I've been doing photography for about 10 years. I started through marketing, that kind of stuff, but I've been shooting cosplay for 7 years now. I sort of unofficially started at Kitacon in 2017. It seems like a long time ago before the event. But yeah, I'm self-taught as well. I don't have any, you know, whether that puts you off or not. I don't have any sort of photography college degrees or university degrees or anything like that. You know, I'm one of those terrible people that thought people shot on manual, so I learned on manual. So, you know, if you've ever struggled with that, you know, that was a real problem getting into it. But, you know, again, it was trying to push myself to do that. And I'm a cosplay group organizer. I'm based up in the Northeast, and there's a cosplay group up there called Toon Titans that I've now set up this year to try and get people together, to be able to get cosplayers and photographers together, because basically I was fed up of seeing fantastic cosplayers, some of them which just seen have these fantastic costumes that they've worked hours and hours and hours on, and then just having photos that were taken on a brick. So I wanted to get people into the studio, get people a bit more confident being in front of the camera, being behind the scenes as well. But yeah, so this is one of the photos that I took at one of our studio events for Toon Titans. This is Claudia as Catwoman. And so she's done a lot of modeling stuff, but had never done any sort of cosplay shoots in studio before. So, right. Moving on, so a little bit more, I studied photography from learning about film, so I have originally an animation background, so I sort of fell into it by going from animation to film to photography. It informs a lot of my style, it informs sort of like my composition and that kind of stuff, my lighting. That's the way I tend to look at things. I study the sort of filmic style from various people. This is Myth, by the way, on the left, as Adam from Has-Been, if anybody's a fan or knows who that is. But yeah, so talking of animation, effects and compositing was my background. So that's where a lot of my effects and editing stuff comes from, being able to put that sort of hyper-real touch on things. As I said earlier, I started cosplay photography sort of unofficially in Kitacon 2017. Basically, I'd seen some nerds, these nerds down the front especially, come to other Kitacons and was like, that sounds really cool, and there's parties and stuff. So I come along and then basically wanted to be able to check out and do photography. As I mentioned before, I was a little baby person on manual on first sort of crop sensor camera, and all of them are missed focus. All of them are pretty badly composed. And so please don't feel like you have to, you know, you're struggling looking at people who have done it for 10, 15 years, some people, even longer. And so please don't compare yourself to that because, you know, practice makes perfect, as they say. So, and then lastly, I've shot at conventions big and small. Obviously, this is sort of a medium-sized one, I would say. We shot at megacons, MCMs, that kind of stuff. And also like public and private events, as I mentioned, Toon Titans. This actually is in the corner of the Utilia Arena this is basically in a stairwell. I'll come on to a bit more about shooting in locations as well. But please don't feel like you need some sort of professional studio set up to get that kind of thing. Cool. So what we're not going to cover, I apologize if anybody's really new and hasn't ever picked up a camera before. We're not going to cover these sort of things. Exposure triangle, you know, your ISO, your aperture settings, etc., etc. There's plenty of videos out on the internet. Please go and look at them. There's plenty of manuals and that kind of stuff. For settings, composition rules, again, rule of thirds, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to go through all that. and what kit you should buy. I'm gonna, there's some kit around the front that I'll refer to, but please don't feel like you have to fixate on that, because again, it's not all about it. But I will come into why it's important to have good kit. So coming up, so this is sort of the vague thing. A lot of this won't make sense to you guys at the moment, but yeah, so we're going to go through sort of seeing the vision, making sure that you know what you want and how to communicate that, about lighting, how to find subjects to shoot and what kind of things that you should be shooting, locations for photos, kit list obviously, cost of the shot, because again, I want to make sure that it's sort of demystified. Like if I show a picture, you might go, well, what's the kit behind that, blah, blah, blah. I don't think I could achieve that with what I've got. So I want to make sure that that's in there. A bit about marketing for your own sort of brand kind of thing, to make sure that, you've probably not heard of me, any of you, but about what you can do with your feed to make it good. Learning from my mistakes, because that's the most important thing. I don't expect you all to go and copy the things that I've done, because you'll just do the same bad things that I've done. So please make sure you pay attention to that bit. And inspirations, because again, we all come from somewhere and we have people that we look up to. So I want to make sure to cover that. So, lights, camera, location. These are all just header titles, by the way, just for my reference. This is Robster Lobster. This was shot, he's at the top of the big circle steps out there, so that's a background composite. But that was last Kitacon. So, seeing the vision. I've got a lot of notes for this slide, so I apologize. But yeah, so the only way that you can get your shot is all about communication. You're working with cosplayers. You need to make sure that you're showing them the shots that you're getting every time that you can. Like once you've got a shot that you're happy with, it's composed right, you've got the lighting right, make sure you're showing them back and forwards, and make sure that if you're going to do anything like this afterwards, spoilers, he's not actually holding up a bus. If you're going to do anything like that, you're going to be able to illustrate to them that that's what you're going for and what you want to do. For instance, obviously this bus is not real, but the shadows on it are, that you can't really see. Obviously the dirt's not real, the cape's not real. So yeah, so if you're going for stuff like that, please make sure that you communicate with people, because obviously they're going to be like, oh, that looks a bit weird, just shot on a white background as this was. He's holding up a table for reference as well, just so he's got something to put his hands on. But yeah, and so please make sure to communicate all the time with your models, because they are not models, cosplayers are not. I mean, some of them might be, some of them might do it professionally. But 90% of the time you're going to be working with people who may even just have stepped in the front of the camera for the first time and gone, yeah, I've made this costume, I've spent like 4 months making it, I really want some cool pictures of it. But they tend to not know how to pose. Please make sure that you know the posing. What I tend to do for my pictures is that I'll say, especially if I don't know the character, I'll say, right, okay, what are your go-to poses for this? Some of them will do invisible hot dog, as we try to avoid. But we go through the poses that they want to do, and then I'll push them a little bit more. So if they've got something that they're comfortable with, right, okay, can we push that a little bit more for the camera? Try different angles with it. Try and turn a little bit more into it. Think about those joint movements. Yeah, and again, so that comes on to the next point of your images are 2D, people are 3D. Okay, it's really difficult to communicate that to some people, because they might be, looking at your work and going, I don't know how to achieve that on my body. But especially, the difference between if I'm doing a pose at you like that, but then I suddenly turn, then you're going to be able to see the total difference. That doesn't feel any different to them, or where I'm turning this hand. But again, it'll be much, much different in camera. And sometimes you can get lost looking at that little rectangle on the back of your camera. It's all about making sure that you communicate again with your models about like what they're doing is going to be reflected in that 2D image at the end. Right, it's all about the light. Spoilers, it's in the name, photography. It's all about that. You want to make sure that you're getting stuff in camera as much as possible, and making sure that you're getting that light right. Flashes provide potential. Please don't rely on them. There's some on the desk over there. I'll get onto that when I come to kit. But again, this is taken with a single flash. It's sort of in that direction. And it's trying to make sure that you get what you want out of it, because again, they're not going to know if you've got a big shiny flash going off. They're going to have no idea what's going on. But again, it'll fill in a lot of things. It makes a lot of difference when you've just got pure sunlight as well, to be able to fill in gaps, be able to orchestrate that light where you want it, because again, it provides it helps a lot with your composition and provides a lot of nuance and that kind of stuff. Where you want it, you can control the light and shape the light around them. So that's part of what you want to see versus what you can control. As I already said, get it in camera as much as possible. And RAW is your friend. Hopefully people are shooting on RAW in here. If you're not, that's fine. You just got to suffer a little bit more. But yeah, I tend to shoot on RAW knowing that I can edit it afterwards. It's not a great habit to be in. But again, if you want to pull back in those shadows to highlight them, if you want to drop those highlights a little bit, especially if you're in a high contrast scene like this, this is shot at St. James's Stadium, in the car park below it. So again, this is just big, like tunnel long corridor that's all concrete down the bottom. And yeah, so it's just single flash on there, being able to drown out the background with that flash and get that lighting right. But then you can pull in all those shadows, making sure that you can darken the background even more, lighten up stuff that you didn't quite get in camera. Subjects to shoot. Okay, so obviously we're shooting cosplay, that's what we're about. Obviously people might be doing that differently as well. But I want to make sure that you'll find your passion in doing it. I'm a big superheroes guy, that's why there's Captain America. It will be recurring kind of theme. Please make sure that you find your passion for what you want to shoot, because you can shoot anything and anybody might step in front of your camera at any point and go, can I have some photos, blah, blah, blah. But it always helps to be able to know that character, to know that sort of theme, to know what you're doing with those photos, because then that's obviously going to inform your posing, it's going to inform your composition, inform your lighting. So make sure that you find those things. Again, if you're all at an anime-based convention, hopefully a lot of you watch anime and that kind of stuff, if you're passionate about that, then it informs about your locations, etc., etc. So please make sure that you find your passion and make sure that you get as much as possible of that sort of subject. Obviously you want to branch out, but it's going to be a really good way to hone your skills of taking pictures of things that you like taking pictures of, because the last thing you want to do is just take pictures of anything and everything, which you can do, but then you're just going to end up sort of just producing pictures and not actually taking the photos that you want to. So as I said, yeah, matching the subject to your location, it helps a lot when you've got that theme. Yeah, and please don't follow trends. It's tempting, you can do that. It's a lot of, there's a lot of things out there, algorithms, blah, 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 blah. It's very tempting to get into the habit of going, people are shooting that, I'll go and shoot that character. I'll go and find people who are doing that kind of thing and shoot with them. Again, that's going to sort of muddle up what I've just said about finding your passion. Please make sure that you're, sticking to what you know and what you want to do. Don't try and just go, I'm going to go left field, because that's going to mess up your website or your feed or anything like that you want to, and you suddenly just get random pictures of random things in there that just because they're on trend. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to do that. And then get diverse, which sounds like it's counterproductive to what I've just said. But what I mean by that is more the people that you're involving. Please make sure that you go after different skin colors, different backgrounds, different ways of looking at things, different models, heights, shapes, etc. Not everybody needs to be one type of person or just your friends, etc. Make sure that you're finding different people to photograph, because again, they're going to have different ways of working and be able to improve your skills by reflecting back on you. If you're always working with the same people and the same type of people, you're always going to be, you're going to fix on how to work with that. And then as soon as you work with somebody else who's never done that kind of thing before, or is new, when you get a little bit more experience, if it's new to them, you're going to be like, they don't work like that. Why is that the case? They seem like they're in the wrong, rather than you being flexible because you've learned to be able to do it all the time. So location for photos, anywhere. I know it's a really stupid place, but anywhere can be a location is more that what I'm saying. Not everywhere can be. It's if you've watched Ratatouille, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so anywhere can be a location. This is again sort of Leazes Park in Newcastle. Obviously, she's not actually standing on the water, but it was a great background to be able to do that. This is a car park in a shopping centre in my hometown. Then this is a themed restaurant again in my hometown, so it's Star Wars themed. So it's anywhere can be a location, as long as you've got that vision and making sure again that you're matching it to that location. What you want is the vibe, as they say, to be able to be right and be able to get those kind of things in camera as much as possible. Obviously, you can do lots of background placement like I do. I tend to use it as a crutch. But again, any starting points, any sort of lighting environments are always great to be able to start with. Conventions, way! These are 3 totally different conventions. Some people might recognize this central picture as the willow trees over there. That's again taken at last Kitacon. The one on the left with Jinx is one of the first cosplay photos I took. Again, that was at SunnyCon up in the northeast. That's just literally in a corridor. The corridor is about this wide. And yeah, that was just taken on a flash, again, on basically a blackboard, basically like that on the back, just to be able to get that lighting right. But again, it was about that works for that moment. If I was trying to just take a regular picture of trying to be able to do something fancy or glowy, it wouldn't have worked. But having that, high contrast flash helps with the gun, etc. but being able to just have that, one vision of it, being able to see that and just execute that one thing. Trying to get different, as I say, different shots around it would have been a bit more difficult. Again, bright sunshine really worked for these guys in the middle. Ring on the back of them. Obviously, there's a little bit of lighting sort of around the edges of those guys to help that along. But again, it just matched a great background as if they were stepping through from sort of one forest to the other. And then on the right, we've got a lovely Iron Man. It's taken up again in the northeast, utility arena, but it's basically, he's in front of some containers. And I've used that giant flash to be able to drown out most of that. You can still see it sort of in the background if you look very closely. But yes, so anywhere in conventions, please look around for them all over the place. Please find the ones that you enjoy. That's the thing that you're going to want to be able to get the most out of. There's no point in just going to every convention. You want to make sure that you sample stuff and make sure that you get stuff out of it, because again, you're going to the whole convention. You don't just want to go for the people in cosplay. Try not to go it alone as well. Some of you might have handy dandy lovely assistants that might carry things for you, but also there's other things again in the convention for you to enjoy. So please don't just feel like you need to go as a lone wolf and be able to just do photos in that convention, because again, they're there for everybody to enjoy. So please do enjoy those. The other thing about conventions is you can either sort of camp out or be mobile. I tend to be a mobile shooter. Some people tend to set up and camp out. It really depends on kind of what your kit setup is, what kind of thing you want to do. Some people might sit in one location and shoot like 200 photos with different people, 30, 40 people in the same thing. But then I tend to think that you get the same background, which doesn't, again, match all of your subjects. So I tend to be a mobile shooter, but then that does mean I tend to carry a lot more kit around with me. Then you sort of just got to lug things around, which tends to be, an advantage for smaller conventions, but then you might not have as much variety of locations. So it's just something to think about when you've got your kit, how much walking around you want to do and how much sort of mobility you want to have. So public and private locations again. So this is a studio on the left. Hodelga? I'm probably saying that completely wrong. But yeah, so that's in a studio rental space. Again, this the middle one with Hawkeye is on a bridge. You can't even get into that location anymore because they've shut it down for roadworks and stuff, as I remember. So that's a central corridor. It's been used by a lot of people because, again, that lovely depth that you get from it. There's a lot of poop that I've cleaned up from the pigeons at the bottom as well. So anywhere can be a thing. But then the location on the right, again, it's a public location, but it's owned by the English Heritage Trust. Some ruins again up in the northeast. Cool. And then, so if you feel like you've got nowhere else and you feel like maybe you can't go to conventions, or, it's not the type of place for you, or whatever you want to do, obviously, there's always the option to create it. This is one of the most important things. Please don't feel like you're stuck with just what you can see out there. Create your own space, reach out to the community in your own area, and attend events. Even if you don't feel like you're going to take photos at them, please make sure that you, again, sample stuff just to have fun and make sure that you can build that network of connections and communicate with different people, as I mentioned, to get that diversity in. And then the two shots on the right are, again, taken at my own events that I run in studio. These are two different studios, but again, that's something that you can do. You can get people together, look at things like Discords, look at local groups. There's plenty of there's UK cosplay community groups, and there tends to be groups for locations around the country as well. There tends to be like a northeast, northwest, southeast, etc., etc. So you can make those studio events. And the one on the very left is actually, it was obviously sort of near Christmas time. That was just a shopping centre event that happened. Sort of, again, that was a community thing. It's Northeast Legion. They were a sort of a spin-off from 99th Garrison, if you're all familiar with those Star Wars guys. But yeah, so they were doing a fundraising event, and again, getting in touch with those guys to do different things, and then ended up doing sort of Christmas Soka with a lightsaber in front of that's like a 20-foot tall Christmas tree. So yeah, so as I mentioned, Toon Titans is the thing that I do on the right. And then I've done one event with them so far, looking to do more next year, with Sports Productions on the left. Please do check those guys out. They do a lot of fan film stuff, but they do photography and that kind of stuff, especially BTS stuff. So please make sure you check out those guys and as I said, get involved with those kind of groups, making sure that, that you invest in the creatives around you, because then, you can always be involved. They put out like a teaser during the pandemic. It was 2021, they put out their first teaser, and I followed them on Twitter from then, and then slowly realized that one of the producers lives basically around the corner from me, and then being able to meet up with him and be able to get on those kind of shoots. So, it's surprising often, you might go to conventions, hundreds of miles away, and then go, oh yeah, you live like 20 streets down from me or around the corner or whatever, we can meet up and do other shots between conventions if that's your bag. Equipment and costs, right. This is the sort of demystifying stuff. Cool guys don't look at explosions. This was shot at CosExpo, RIP, last year. So these are a very cool bunch of guys. Unfortunately, we didn't have actual pyrotechnics, but you know. So this is, I'm going to get everybody's names on. Coco, Dex, Cosplay Dad, Mike, I can't remember the end of his username, Xtran, Michael, and Girl of Steel. So kit list. So I shoot on a Canon R6 Mark II. It's the first new camera that I bought, so please don't feel that you need to buy everything new. Everything else that I've got is gifted or secondhand in terms of sort of cameras and lenses. So that's a full frame mirrorless, if that means anything to people these days. A lot of the kit industry is leaving sort of mirrored cameras, DSLRs behind. It's now a mirrorless camera, so I wanted to make sure that I get on there. But I bought it for the settings on autofocus and that kind of stuff. That's primarily why I wanted to do that jump up. I still use a lot of EF lenses because when you've invested a lot in lenses for your previous cameras, you don't tend to want to do that. You know, I do have an adapter from the R6 down to the sort of EF lenses to make sure that I can still utilize those. Luckily, they made one of the best adapters in the industry to be able to do that. But yeah, so this is a bunch of lenses on here. We've got the 24-70. This is the 14 that I've just sort of purchased. This is a sort of nifty 50, which is, again, you'll probably have heard that term a lot of times, f/1.4. And then I've got an AD300 and AD100 Pro. Those are the flashes. They're very powerful. Again, the 300, if you're close enough proximity, can drown out the sun if you need to. You know, it's not the massive best studio light, but again, it can give you a much better key if you needed to. And then the AD100 again is a massive advantage for filling in stuff. So if you've got like the sun behind somebody, it's really good to be able to blast that on someone's face, so maybe with a little bit of diffusion to fill in all the darker areas that you've got from not being able to see them that well. So those are flashes that I tend to rely on. And then modifiers, again, I've got that giant flipping octobox on the corner there. Yeah, that was, again, a new bit of kit that I rely on really well. Again, it gives a great, nice soft light. But again, please don't feel like you need to copy what I'm doing or get on that for the types of shots you want. Please make sure that you experiment and work your way up to this kind of stuff. So yeah, so as I said, I started on a Canon 60D, which is crop sensor. That came out in 2004 or something. But I bought it again like 6 years after that. So yeah, so that was 2 cameras ago. Went up to the 6D Mark II and then obviously onto the R6 Mark II. I was gifted a 50mm because that was a bit out of my price range at the time when I started, which, you know, was a fantastic portrait lens to use. And then added slowly a lot of lenses, sort of 70 to 200, etc. I sort of bought one and then traded it in for another one, blah, blah, blah. As I said, all those other lenses. And then got the R6 this year, as I said. Beginning of this year, it was, you know, it was one of the only new things that I've actually bought for kit. If you're looking for somewhere to purchase like sort of used kit, there are loads of places. Essential Photo and Video, Len Carter do stuff, MPB do stuff, Wex Photo and Video. But yeah, there's loads and loads of things. Tends to be sort of like depreciation on camera kit is like a car. As soon as you start using it, it drops by a third. Tends to be the kind of rule if it's like a year old, but you can still get really, really good quality stuff like Wex Photo and Video. Take pictures of all their individual items, so exactly what you're getting on the picture, you know, that's what you're gonna get. And they grade everything as well from like 1 to 9 and 9+. In terms of quality. So you can tend to save a lot of money by going on and buying something basically as new, but it's basically either been refurbished or, you know, it's just been taken out of the box, had like 100 photos taken on it and put back in the box kind of deal. Last bit on kit is extras. So I use a little smoke machine now that I bought. Again, that was fun. Great thing to add atmosphere to your photos. Color gels, etc. Sort of red, green, blue, always great for studio work, being out and about, being able to get that, again, create that atmosphere around characters. If you've got some sort of evil, spooky character, it's always great to throw green light on them, etc. You don't have to recolor it afterwards. Reflectors is another thing. I don't have any with me this weekend, but again, sometimes you just want the sun and you might just have a subtle golden reflector, being able to put a light back on their face. Extremely useful. You can tend to get pop-up ones that are like white, black, silver, gold, double-sided kind of things. And then pop-up backgrounds as well. I've got a couple. I've got some double-sided ones as well. They're great for, I don't think I have any pictures of them in here, but they can be great, again, if you go to a convention or especially like a really mini con that is just a hall or something like that, and you go, oh, there's some cool people with cool costumes coming. you might want to just throw that up in the background, stick it on a stand, or even sort of just hang it off something on the wall, and then you've got an immediate portrait background. And especially if you just want to do like some sort of fancy portraiture stuff. With cosplayers or otherwise, that's always useful to have in your bag. So this is my friend Elliot. This was shot in 2017. But yeah, so I wanted to get through the cost of the shot kind of stuff. Again, demystifying, this is not trying to humble brag. This is not trying to make sure that people feel like they need to spend this kind of money. I just want to make sure that people sort of understand that it's a hobby that can be expensive and can be quite, people feel like they might cost a lot to get through these things. So I just wanted to go over this very quickly. So the 60D starter kit I got, again, second, I think it might have been third hand. I got like a bag, like 5 batteries, a sort of not quite kit lens. It was a 35 to 80. All that kind of good stuff. I got like 5 memory cards with it as well, but they were all a little bit duff. You can sort of pick up those collections of things on things like Facebook Marketplace or eBay, that kind of thing. It's shot on the 50mm f1.4. I think that's at f/over 1.8. And then again, this is all natural light, so that's totally free. So not massively expensive, under 400 quid to sort of have a starter setup, which a lot of you probably with DSLRs have probably spent that or even more so far anyway. This is slightly different. Again, shot at Cos Expo, RIP. She's standing sort of in front of basically a field, but I've drowned that out with A, editing, and B, the actual lighting on her. It started to get up a little bit more expensive this time. Like 24 to 70 was the most expensive thing that I owned in my life at that point. So please don't feel like you need to splash out that much. I'm a very cheap person, apart from camera gear apparently. But yeah, so flashing and modifiers, that was with the AD100, basically directly from screen left. Punching that light into her, sort of full blast through a little diffuse umbrella. And then a PD strap system. It's on the table there. Anybody's free to come and have a look at the end of stuff if you want to. That's a quick release system. So I wanted to make sure to have that sort of reliable camera strap that you can be able to whip on and off. It's made out of like seatbelt material and stuff, holds up to like 400 pounds or something ridiculous. I don't need to sell it to you. They do a good job of that. But again, that can be quite expensive on its own anyway. So we're sort of pushing up 2.5 grand there. Obviously, all of these kind of things, I'm not paying that much for that one shot. The 6D Mark II, I plugged it into the computer and tried to get a shutter count on it, and it went error. So I don't know how many shots I've taken on that. It's probably about 50,000 at this point, because I use it for work and that kind of stuff as well. So yeah, even if I spent like 0.1% on that thing, then you can spread that cost over that much and you end up with, like £2 a shot then. For anybody interested, I take pictures of containers for a living. But at least it pays these kind of bills. And again, this is sort of my sort of setup now. This is again studio setup in a Toon Titans event of Lisa as Shadow Heart. Again, brand new camera at the top, new lens and filter on the front there. But please buy filters for your camera lenses. You can get stop-up rings and that kind of stuff. But if you're using a nice lens that you've spent a lot of money on, please buy something straight up like just a simple UV filter. If you get a decent one, it'll add basically no vignetting to your, I'm getting technical now, but it'll basically add nothing extra crazy on the front of your image. It'll keep UVs away from your sensor and adds another bit of glass. I have had an incident where, unfortunately, something was spring-loaded on a table with my camera next to it. The catch on the spring-loaded thing, I won't mention what it is, sprang open, whacked straight in front of that big lens on front of it, and I was very, very glad to have that extra bit of glass that then shattered, but didn't shatter the 1,400 quid lens. Again, none of this is covering like studio time. This is again studio rental, that kind of stuff. So there are other costs and stuff, traveling to conventions, blah, 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 blah. Again, I just wanted to make sure that that's clear to people, that people realize that that's because I've been doing it for a long time and being able to add to that incrementally over time. Don't feel like if you're judging people's work that you've looked up to for like 15, 20 years and you're starting on one camera that's 400 quid, etc., that you feel like you have to compare yourself to those people who've done it because they probably have invested quite a lot in their kit as well as the time and effort for their stuff as well. Anyway, moving swiftly on. So being not yourself. This is again shot at Cos Expo, RIP. The Sports Sasquatch stat and Opal Ink cosplay. Again, shot in a field. All those guys in the background are fake, which is probably quite easy to tell. The snow is also fake. So this is all about marketing and things. Again, I go by MD Hammond Photos on Instagram. So this is sort of what my feed looks like. But yeah, wanted to make sure that people realize, because again, you're pushing your work out to things like Instagram, make sure that you create a brand that fits your style. Like I am big, bold, punchy logo with, they're a little bit more subtle on there, but big primary colors, because that tends to be my style. As you can see, like, you know, maybe there's some purple in there for some good measure, but I tend to be big, bright, bold colors. That tends to be, again, because a lot of the stuff that I shoot is superhero based, so they tend to be big, bright, bold, primary colors because they appeal to a lot of people. So please match something that adds your style. Again, some people like to do really wispy sort of things, like signature stuff. You tend to see those on like wedding photographers because they feel like that's a trustworthy thing for weddings, etc. So please, whatever you do, stick to your style of photography and then reflect that in sort of how you present yourself online. Decide on your voice. It's an important thing. I'm losing mine. If you're posting everything and you've got post to caption, figure out sort of a consistent way of communicating with your audience. I tend to start all my posts with a quote and that kind of stuff because I'm lame, but then I go through and then I'll be able to structure that post around that and be able to communicate consistently out to people. So make sure you do that because, again, consistency is quite key for posting and that kind of stuff. If you post consistently, you'll gain followers and likes and that kind of stuff. Not that that's all important, but it's good to see other people and gain a reputation for doing good work on your feed. And use collaboration tools because, you know, spoilers, unfortunately, none of you are going to be as popular on Instagram as the people that you're taking photos of. I know it's a really harsh reality, but, you know, the collaboration tools really, really help to be able to boost each other and boost your following as well as theirs. So please make sure that you use those kind of things to your advantage. As said, adding your signature, you know, it's not quite the same as your logo, but again, you may want to put things like watermarks on your images. Are they for you? I don't tend to do that because, again, tend to end up being cropped off, etc., etc. But yeah, if you want to add some sort of play on things with your style as well, again, it's something about you that you can push towards people and be able to make sure that the people can look at those images and go, that looks kind of like, and then they can sort of identify you more from your work than anything else. Show your face is another important point. You know, mine's not on there, but I tried to do it like a Ask Me Anything kind of story every once in a while to be able to make sure that people can see you. Because again, a lot of people might have looked at my feed before this and gone, I have no idea who you are because I've never seen your face. So please try and show that in like BTS videos and that kind of stuff. Show stories, make sure that you get yourself out there so people can recognize you at conventions and that kind of thing. Learning from my mistakes, again, all important. Please ignore the grid. What I mean by that is, again, I started off trying to post 3 of the same thing every time. Some people can rigidly stick to that. I know some people who still do it, but I found it really, really hard and I forgot about it quite quickly because as soon as you start using those collaboration tools and you start sending out multiple pictures of multiple people from different conventions, unless you want to curate your feed massively and just have it on your own, if you want to use those collaboration tools, you're going to get people trying to appear on your feed all the time, all over the place. So please don't try and stick to that if it's not for you. Create more videos. Again, this was a really quick video that I did at a convention with Lisa. It's really, really helps for your reach and theirs. People really, really like being able to get those quickly. For me, at least, it's even quicker to turn around videos than photos because I tend to just go, here's like 5 tiny clips. I'll just wind them together in Premiere and then just output it. So please make sure that you create more videos. Again, it boosts your stuff. And if you create videos of yourself, and you know, you get some more behind the scenes stuff, gets people knowing who you are and feel safer around you. Try before you buy, that's always a good one. If you can do, please borrow cameras or kit before you're going to upgrade stuff. Again, as I said, it's an expensive hobby, and if you invest in the wrong things, like I have done multiple times, you tend to end up costing you a lot of money, and then you go resell those things and a waste of time. So please, if you've got someone, especially who uses like the same camera system as you or is using similar lighting to you, you know, I've borrowed a lot of my lights to people who are like, oh, that looks pretty cool. How does that work? Blah, blah, blah. So I borrowed them out for a weekend, etc., or just gone along with them on a shoot so they can test it out for them and they go, oh yeah, cool. So there have been multiple people that have used like the AD100 especially and gone, is that any good? They've tested it out and then immediately bought it themselves. So it's always good to share kit, but also try and borrow things off of other people to be able to, you know, expand your kit before you invest all that money. Embrace the weird. This is more about talking to people, finding your sort of crowd, especially those in your area. Again, like as I mentioned, like you might find people at conventions, but they might be hanging around near you and you'll be able to, you know, you will be surprised at how local people can be to you. And then get around easy. Oh God. I don't drive, which is like a cardinal sin when it comes to photography. Yeah, if you're driving that kind of stuff, it makes you a bit more mobile. It doesn't keep you restricted. It means you can go this, that, and the other, goes to different locations, etc. Safety first, second, last, right? Okay, so I'll try and keep this short. But yeah, this is not necessarily about your skincare out in the sun today or keeping hydrated or that kind of stuff. This is Opalink. Again, there's Atreus on the left, and Kiza, one of our cosplay guests this year. On the right, again, shot at CosExpo RIP. But yeah, I went to MegaCon 2 weeks ago, and they did a little panel there. And they asked for top tips and that kind of stuff. And the photographers sort of gave their top tips and went through and went, oh yeah, like try this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. Get those rules, follow things. And then all the cosplayers took a turn and they all talked about physical safety on shoots, basically to avoid creeps, to avoid people who you don't want to shoot with. And I thought that was not a great thing that everybody wanted to do that. So basically I wanted to have this in here as a note that it all starts with the people doing the photos. It doesn't start with the cosplayers. You know, you have to make sure that people feel safe. That's why I feel like it's a good way to try and get BTS videos, that kind of stuff, photos with people, so people can know that's you, that's your face. You're being able to show them that you're a safe person to work with outside of like everything else, because you know it's very easy to say I'm not a weirdo, please come and work with me, but having other people advocate for you is going to be really important. Again, if you hear anything, you know, with cosplayers and stuff, please try and spread that around. You know, I know like people talk about like cancel culture and blah, blah, blah. I don't want to get into that side of things, but essentially if people feel unsafe on your set, it's up to you to do something about it. You need to make sure that you're educating yourself and making sure that, you know, you're safe to work with, because, you know, you're going to fall out of the hobby very quickly and people are going to ignore you for doing that. As I said, it's very easy for me to stand up here and say, don't be a creep, but please make sure that you're getting feedback from people that you work with and making sure that you know if there are lines to be drawn, you draw those lines yourself and don't cross over them. Please make sure that you communicate with cosplayers to make sure that they know how far you want to do, because, you know, don't tend to be intimacy coordinators on set for you guys, you know, especially if you're doing something a little bit more risque, etc. You have to make sure that you know where those lines are before you do the shoot. Some people will be like, no, I don't want you to touch me at all. I don't want you to fix wigs or whatever, even if they don't have sort of friends around, etc. But some people might be like, yeah, I don't care. Just, you know, adjust things, do whatever. You know, it really depends on the cosplayer and finding that line with them before you start stepping over it or on it, etc. So please just make sure that you get that in your head, basically, because again, it needs to be a safe environment that we're creating for everybody. I know that's a very serious topic and I'm sorry to bring the tone down, but I wanted to make sure that that was touched on for everybody, so that again, you make sure that it's a nice working environment, because again, it's a hobby. Everybody's trying to make sure that they're having fun throughout it. Inspirations. So lighten the mood back up a little bit. Everybody has people that they look up to. So I wanted to make sure that you know some of mine. So we've got Acoustica. Aki is around this weekend. They've got a lot of tank space shoot. Again, that's another crazy location that I can't afford to do. But there's some big underwater stuff, but they do a lot of kind of, not necessarily the similar style to me, but they tend to do a lot of bold, bright colors. So I really like those kind of things. Carlos Adama, if you've met him, he's a lovely guy. He's one of the main photographers at Spores Productions. He does a bit of this, that, and the everything. He's a massively cool guy when it comes to lighting and atmosphere. And Valentine Pictures, he's over in France, but he does a lot of stuff with Il Volta, etc. I think some of those on there are from there, but he does fantastic stuff. So please also look out for creators who are not in your area, not even in your country. I mean, I've had a discussion yesterday with people about like how the cosplay community in Europe is exceedingly different to the cosplay community here. So again, finding different people, finding different inspirations is always good. So I'll shut up now. But yeah, thanks very much, everybody. And yeah, hopefully I've bored you all to death and you don't want to do this anymore. But if anybody's got any questions, please give me a shout.